If you're watching TV without one, it won't be long before your number's up. Visit our website or call 0800 328 2020. TV licensing, easier to pay, harder to avoid.
Once a year, the Queen's yeomen check a certain cellar. They're not looking for wine. They're looking for gunpowder. Well, better to be safe than sorry. 400 years ago, 13 men conspired to blow up the king, his government, and the entire English elite. Timewatch reveals just how close they got. The Gunpowder Plot. Timewatch returns next Friday at 9 on BBC Two.
A sugar bowl gives its owners a very sweet surprise. Flog it from Glasgow in half an hour on BBC Two. First, a change to the billed episode of Castle in the Country.
The Crimson Dining Room here at Castle Howard is home to beautiful antiques, fascinating history and amazing works of art.
And for the next half hour, it's opening its doors to you. So welcome to Castle in the Country. The collection in this room is only the tip of an iceberg. Castle Howard is jam-packed with stunning pieces of art, a real treasure house.
And these are the gems we have lined up for you today. John discovers some stunning works of art in the chapel.
The Victorians really reinvented stained glass.
Nikki gets to grips with her sea legs when she goes to find Whitby's connection with Captain Cook.
He has terrific moral authority over a large crew of some pretty tough types.
And the wind's taken out of Judith's sails when she discovers a hotel with a difference.
Oh, goodness. What marvellous views.
The coastal town of Whitby has always been an important seaport, but one man's voyage in particular put it on the 18th century map.
Captain Cook, unquestionably Yorkshire's greatest seaman. It was here in Whitby that his skills, courage and adventurous spirit took him to sail. As he himself said, not only as far as man has gone before, but as far as it is possible for man to go. And what better way to start my journey than on a replica of Captain Cook's ship, the Endeavour. And I'm going to be shown the ropes by local historian and cook expert, Dr. Sophie Forgan.
Now here we are out at sea, but probably nothing in comparison to some of the conditions Captain Cook and his crew found themselves on their many voyages. Sophie, what type of man was he?
I think he must have been quite a tough man. It's difficult to tell because he doesn't tell you much about himself. He doesn't brag at all. He doesn't boast. He has, if you like, terrific moral authority over a large crew of some pretty tough types which they were, who went to sea at that time.
Because he didn't come from a seafaring family, did he? His father was a farmer. Why was he so driven? Why did he want to go to sea? Do we know?
We don't know, and he doesn't tell us, but he served Captain Walker 9 years, 3 years as an apprentice, which was quite short, but he was already 17, which was quite old for an apprentice at that time. Then he spent another 6 years in Walker's service, rising to be mate of a vessel, and it was when Walker offered him a vessel to be master of, which carried extra perks and privileges and so on, that he decided, no, sorry, I got to hold on.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're really getting a flavour of some of his
voyages. That he decided, no, he wanted to go a bit further afield, and he signed up for the Royal Navy.
I must admit, Sophie, it's nice to be back on terra firma after that sail. Now this building, this houses the Captain Cook Museum. Does the building itself have any significance?
The building is, if you like, the best exhibit of the lot, because this was the home of Captain John Walker, to whom Cook was apprenticed, so he would have lodged here for 3 years when not at sea.
So this room is full of maps from his voyage, but why is this map of such interest?
It's actually a French map, 1742, and it shows the Pacific just as it was before Cook's voyage.
So which countries are actually missing at this point in 1742?
Well, there's nothing much of New Zealand. The whole of the eastern coast of Australia is missing, and there's lots of islands missing. By the time Cook had finished his 3 voyages, he had, as it were, reduced the Pacific to order, mapped all the major islands and an awful lot of the minor ones. Come in through here.
Ah, now which ship is this?
This is the Resolution, which went on Cook's 2nd and 3rd voyages.
And here we have a display of everything that went on board as well.
And what with the livestock, one historian's described a ship like this as a travelling farmyard and a bit of a travelling circus as well.
All under one man's command.
All under one man's command.
The Howards have always collected great art, sculptures, paintings, objets d'art, but it was the 9th Earl who took that interest even further and became an artist himself, joining the 19th century Bohemian set. His friends among them included William Morris and Edward Burne-Jones, who were at the core of the pre-Raphaelite movement. And as a result of this friendship, Castle Howard got one of its most stunning pieces of art. Well, here we are in the chapel, Paul, and a very ornate room, isn't it? And what really stands out to me are these beautiful stained glass windows.
I think they're fantastic. They're just wonderful colour and structure. But they give us a vision of how the Victorians saw modern design. They were looking back to the Middle Ages, but of course they put a modern spin on it, and so it was all colour and pattern and ornament, and this chapel is typical of that.
And who created these windows?
Well, they were created by Burne-Jones, the famous Victorian painter. Now, he was a friend of the family. He was
the
also
9th Earl?
The 9th Earl, George Howard. He was also well established as a stained glass designer.
And I think that William Morris, the man best known, I think, for his wallpaper designs, came onto the scene as well, didn't he?
Very much so. Burne-Jones was a great friend of William Morris. More important, Morris was a great sort of organiser, fixer. He ran an interior design company. He could supply you with architects, furniture makers, tile makers, and of course, if you wanted stained glass, you got Burne-Jones. He was a wonderful creator of what we now accept as the great late Victorian style.
And did he actually paint the glass himself?
No, he was the designer. So therefore, he would have done the sketch, that would have been shown and approved. He'd have then done a full-size cartoon, which showed the layout of the design and all the components in colour. He'd have chosen the colours. But then the craftsman would have assembled the glass components and painted them. He would have then approved it, and then it would have been put together with the lead framing as we see it there. Here, as you come in, you get this wonderful sequence of the 4 stories leading you into the building. Fantastic.
Yes, so what, the Annunciation, the Nativity,
the Magi, and then the flight into Egypt. So you've got the whole story, but brought round to show you. It's a wonderful sort of perspectival trick almost. I think one must see it as part of a total scheme. You know, here you've got wonderful coloured marbles, you've got wall paintings, you've got fantastic elaboration, and so the windows are simply part of a total package.
And in his oil paintings, Burne-Jones is famous for the ladies who look very languid, very bored.
Yes, it's a particular vision of Victorian Britain. These rather pre-Raphaelite women, long hair, flowing dresses, as you say, somewhat bored, almost depressed faces. But of course, in a sense, they were painting themselves. If you look at photographs of that group, that's what the women looked like. And indeed, when he came to doing stained glass or doing paintings, he didn't have far to look. He had his models all around him. And so what we've really got here are Victorians dressed up. They loved doing it, and so rather than have a really detailed sense of historical costume, they just projected themselves into their vision of the world.
And was stained glass very popular in Victorian times?
Yes, the Victorians really reinvented stained glass. They recreated the bright medieval colours from the 1840s onwards, and so by the 1870s it was a well-known art form. And of course it wasn't just churches, it went into town halls, it went into railway stations, and of course it went into people's houses. We've all seen those front doors with little stained glass panels. You know, this is where it all came from.
But these were much more expensive windows, though, weren't they? I think they cost around £800.
This is serious money. You know, £800 would have bought you a well-equipped, medium-sized farm at that point. So it was big money, and it was big money put into modern art. We must never forget, this was not old stuff, this was new stuff. This was buying something brand new, the latest style, the latest taste. So it was spending a lot of money on things which had no guaranteed future whatsoever.
So they must be worth a fortune these days.
I would
the
imagine
windows.
so.
And of course, Burne-Jones was renowned for often not finishing his works.
Yes, there are sad images of him in his studio, surrounded by stacked canvases, obviously thinking, oh, what shall I do today? But in this case, with stained glass, it was a commission. Other people carried it out. And I think in this case, they got what they paid for.
I've always wanted a fine pair of pins, perhaps even as shapely as the ones crafted by Yorkshire's own Thomas Chippendale. Judith went to find out more.
Of all the names associated with antique furniture, Chippendale is probably the best known. Thomas Chippendale, son of a joiner, grandson of a carpenter, was born here in Otley in 1718. Chippendale's designs covered a wide range of styles, from Rococo to Gothic and chinoiserie. His furniture was mostly made of mahogany imported from the West Indies, and he was heavily influenced by the work of neoclassical architect Robert Adam, with whom he worked on several projects, including Harwood House and Nostell Priory here in Yorkshire. Many fine pieces of furniture have been attributed to Chippendale, but original pieces are rare, and his designs were widely copied. He never employed a maker's mark, so the only way of establishing whether your antique table is a true Chippendale is to have the original bill. Good luck.
Chippendale, I'm sure, would have appreciated this next item because it's all about trees. But as self-confessed tree hugger Julie Edmonston found out when she went for a walk in the woods, not all trees are born humble. Some are very special indeed.
This is Thorpe Perrow, not just a lovely family home, but it also has a unique arboretum, that is to say a collection of trees. There's been woodland here managed by mankind since the Middle Ages, but now it's in the very capable hands of Sir John and Lady Ropner. This lovely arboretum, John, it's such a special collection of trees. And I know it was the dream of one man, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the dream of my father, who started planting it more or less straight away after my grandfather bought this house in 1927. It is remarkable in that he was unaided. He had no help at all planting it. It was all done on the back of an envelope, and I think that makes it unique in many ways.
So, John, when did you personally first get involved?
Well, not really in any big way until I was 40 years old, when my father died in 1977. Because before then, I hadn't been allowed in here. None of us were really encouraged to learn anything about the Arboretum. But when Dad died in 1977, I had to immediately try and get some help because the place looked like a Borneo rainforest.
And not open to the public?
And not open to the public. So we then set about sorting it out, and I managed to get some money from the government, which was very gratefully received. They were looking for places for people to go outside the national parks in Yorkshire. But nobody knew what an arboretum was, so nobody came.
No. And have you continued the planting? I mean, what are the special trees?
Well, we have 4 national collections, lime, walnut, ash and laburnum, and we've got 67 champion trees.
67?
Yeah, 67. And I don't know whether you know, but a champion tree is is on a register as being the biggest and best of its type in England and Ireland.
Oh, I've always wanted to meet a champion.
Well, come on, let me introduce you.
Good.
Right, Julie, meet a champion. Here is one of our limes. This is a particularly rare one. It's Tilia insularis from Korea. And in fact, when I say from Korea, from one island in Korea.
Really? Of course, it's got a lovely leaf canopy, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it?
And of course, they make wonderful honey too, don't they?
They do. And they kill bees as well, which is rather sad. You may see there's some littered around on the ground here.
I noticed them.
I don't know what it's. Obviously, some of them are very narcotic. So when these bees come collecting their pollen, they're
overindulged.
Overindulged. That's a good word.
John, I know this particular tree was planted by your father, but there are also many older trees here.
Yes, there are. There's one in particular I'd like to show you.
Please. My goodness, what a huge tree.
Yes, it jolly well is.
I tell you, John, if I was a tree hugger, I'd have a serious problem, but it must have an amazing history.
Well, the story goes that it was planted by Catherine Parr. She was one of Henry VIII's wives, and she lived at Snape Castle, just half a mile away. And she survived Henry VIII, being a good Yorkshire girl. And I think she must have one day walked across from the castle with her little oak seedling and popped it in the ground, and here it is some 400 or 500 years later.
What a lovely story. John, talking of history, you inherited this arboretum from your father. How do you see the future?
Well, that's a difficult question. But I've got a son, and he is doing jolly well, and hopefully he'll come and live here one day. If he does, hopefully he'll love the Arboretum as much as we have and do. But I honestly believe that now it is such an important collection of trees, somebody will pick it up and nurture it like we have.
Still to come on Castle in the Country, James discovers how the locals like their lemon buns.
For some reason, we turn them inside out to get a sandwich.
Judith discovers a hotel with a difference.
It's 220 years old, built in 1785.
But first, Renaissance man Roger tells us about a very special discovery here at Castle Howard.
In 1995, an amazing discovery was made during an insurance evaluation. A Sotheby expert was looking through the scrapbook of old masters' drawings, and he came across a pen and ink drawing which was subsequently authenticated as being by one of the world's greatest artistic geniuses, Michelangelo. And it had lain unrecognized for 250 years. The drawing is regarded as a fine example of the artist's work. And as you can see from the copy of the original, it depicts a lady seen from the side with her face partially obscured by the heavy folds of a cloak. Now, when the drawing came into the possession of Castle Howard, we're not sure, but it was probably purchased in 1747 at a London auction by the 4th Earl, who was a well-known buyer at that time. The Howard family sold the drawing at a Sotheby's auction in 2001, and it fetched an amazing £5.9 million.
Can you imagine finding one of those in your attic?
Oh, if only.
God, we wish, don't we? Now, I love cakes, so you can imagine I was particularly upset when it was James and not me that got to go to one of Yorkshire's top bakers to try out some of their secret recipes.
But he did make one for us later, didn't he, with his own recipe?
Now, one of the best things about visiting Yorkshire is their love of cakes, and this is no exception. So I've come to a bakery to find out 2 special recipes. Whenever I came here as a kid, my granny used to send me here for 2 things. These lemon buns. Tell us how you make these. This is like, what's it like, a bread, sweet bread dough?
It's a very rich fermented dough, quite sweet with fruit in it, and a top secret recipe for the icing.
Never gives anything away, you see. And then this stuff over here, which you sell all over the UK now, don't you, really? Baked here, sold all over the UK. Yorkshire Brack.
Yep, Yorkshire Brack.
What goes in there?
Made with our own blend of tea, Resolution tea.
And you would eat this with what, butter or a little bit of jam?
You can eat it as it is. With cheese is the real Yorkshire recipe.
Is it, really?
No.
Well, I'm not going to get the recipe for that, so I'm going to have 2 of these then.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much. All right. Now I'm going to let you into a little secret. This is how to spot a tourist in Whitby. Normally, they would eat these like this. Locals, for some reason, would turn them inside out to get a sandwich. Now you know. Now obviously they're not going to give me their secret recipe to Yorkshire Brack, so I'm going to show you my recipe. What I've got in here is some golden raisins and normal raisins, equal quantities of each, strong tea, light brown sugar and whiskey. So the tea, very, very strong tea, about 250 mils of that, some sugar, and then we take some whiskey, a good amount of that. Then we mix all this lot together, and ideally we need to leave this overnight. It wants about 12 hours to soak. And what I've got in here is one that has been soaking, which you can see it actually plumps up all the raisins, and there's very little liquor left. So into there now we're going to add some baking powder, touch of allspice, nutmeg, salt, flour, little bit of milk and some eggs, and we just pop the whole lot in. 2 eggs. The flour can go in. It's really this simple. Touch of baking powder will actually help it rise. A little bit of our spice, mixed spice. Touch of nutmeg. Bit of grated nutmeg. Some salt, a nice pinch of salt, and the juice of a lemon. There you go. Squeeze all that in. Mix this all together, and I haven't put any milk in at this stage because it's the texture that we're looking for. So once you mix this together, you can actually add more milk. And you just add a little bit to start off with. And you're looking for what chefs call a drop-in consistency. That's what we're looking for. So you'll actually mix this together. Always mix this by hand, remember, not by machine. Otherwise it will break up your sultanas or your raisins. And this goes the same when you make all cakes, particularly with dried fruit. Otherwise it will end up with just a mush in the bottom of your tin. So you're looking at that style of texture. And what I mean by drop-in consistency, if you look at that, it should just drop in a lump. Not fall off in a stream, just in a lump. I've got a 2-pound tin here, non-stick tin. We can then take all of our mixture. The smell of this is fabulous with the tea and the whiskey. Place the mixture in, press it down nice and compact, so it's nice and flat. And then I've set the oven quite low, about 150 degrees centigrade. That's about 300 Fahrenheit, and you need to cook this now for about 90 minutes. And cook it slowly, like most fruit cakes should be cooked slowly. And I've got one in the oven that's been in there now for about 90 minutes. The best way to test them, very simply all you do, take a carving fork or a skewer, press it in there. If it comes out dry, which that is, that means it's cooked in the middle. If it's wet, you need to cook it for a little bit longer. But leaving that to cool down, I'm going to show you another great classic that you get from pastry shops. Brandy snaps filled with cream. So easy to do. Butter, sugar. Very simply, add the flour. We've got 8 ounces of sugar here, 4 ounces of butter, 4 ounces of flour, 4 ounces of golden syrup. Place the whole lot into there with some ginger, because that's where we get that nice flavour of our brandy snaps from. Mix this together, and if we mix this, it will actually go like a paste. Bring all these ingredients together. The more we mix it, and it'll actually resemble almost like pastry. And you'll end up, as it starts to come together like we've got here, this lovely rich paste that we can mould. You can see it start to come together now. The more we mix it, the better. And you will end up with this. Once it goes into your fridge, you can keep this in the fridge for a week or 2. It's fantastic. Mould this up into balls like that. Press them down. And these will actually quadruple in size, so when you put them on your tray, make sure you've got a big enough gap in between each one. So 3 on a tray like that should be fine. Pop them in the oven, 180 degrees centigrade, roughly for about 3 or 4 minutes. So once the brandy snaps are nicely golden brown all over, we need to allow them to cool down before we shape them. So to get the shape of a brandy snap, that's what you're looking for. It's technical, this cooking art. You actually use a broom handle. You can't actually get away with a wooden spoon handle, but a broom handle. Lift off your brandy snaps as they're cooling down. You see the texture change. Place it over the top of your broom handle, and then very, very carefully, we wrap this around your broom handle. So once the brandy snaps are cold, you lift them off like that. Move that to one side. And then all I do is just fill it with some whipped double cream. It's a classic, but these are fantastic. This type of food just reminds me so much of my childhood and says that true classics should never be forgotten.
I think if I'd eaten all of that, I might need to lie down. Now, I'm in the Castle Howard bedroom, and it's been used throughout the centuries by various earls and countesses as their bedchamber. The most striking thing in this room, however, is the bed itself. It's by John Linnell, an 18th century cabinet maker and designer. His clients included many wealthy and notable members of society, and is known to have worked for the 5th Earl of Carlisle on a number of occasions. The accounts show that between 1777 and 1789 he received payment for over £1,400 from Castle Howard, a huge amount of money. And this is the bed he designed for them. It's a satinwood 4-poster with a 2-tier canopy carved with leaves leaf and honeysuckle motifs. Now, painted on the posts is entwined ivy. It's absolutely beautiful. In addition, for the 5th Earl, Linnell also designed commodes. There's one there, and that's where the chamber pot would have lived. And all these chairs are decorated with a green feather motif and covered in Italian gold fabric. Now, I don't think you could fail to have a good night's sleep in such a fantastically ornate bedroom. But when Judith went to Scarborough, she discovered some beds in a much more unusual location.
Over the years, I must say, I've stayed in a fair amount of intriguing accommodation, but nothing quite as unusual as this, a windmill.
Hi, Judith, I'm Roland.
Yes,
nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too. This looks in splendid nick, this windmill.
Well, you've hit at the right time, a beautiful sunny day.
And how long have you and Angela owned it?
We've owned it for 8 years, since July 1997.
A good 8 years?
A good 8 years, yes, very good.
And what about its age?
It's 220 years old, built in 1785.
The Scarborough was a very different size then.
It was, and the whole area around the mill was open fields. So people who had their own fields and grew corn here, they could bring their bags of corn in and get it milled and turned into flour as and when they required.
And when was it used as a working mill last?
It was last used in 1915, and after that there was no more milling of the corn. And it gradually went into worse and worse state, and it was virtually scheduled for demolition. But luckily, it was prevented, and it was made a Grade 2 listed building, which it is now.
Well, what was it like then? Just a shell, really?
It was just a tower,
yeah.
Just the hollow tower, with no dome and no sail.
And when you came in here now, you've done quite a bit to it, haven't you?
We've done an awful lot to it,
yes.
We replaced the dome, replaced the sails.
That was quite a task, wasn't it?
It was. The panels were rotting and holes were appearing in it, and so we had to get a crane in to lift it down, and we had to replace it, and we fiberglassed it, and then put it back up again.
Oh goodness, what marvellous views! Lovely views. How many years have there been windmills on this site?
Records going back as far as the 1300s show that windmills were on this site, and I don't know whether it was continuous, but certainly the windmills have been here for many centuries.
Now tell me about the story and the connection with the Civil War.
Well, during the Civil War, when the parliamentary forces, the Roundheads, laid siege to the Royalists who were in the castle, they used the windmill that was here at the time as an observation point to direct their artillery fire onto the castle. And this is the upper flat, Judith.
Oh, isn't that nice? It's very pleasant, isn't it? Good and light. You've got a lot of light up here. And you created this flat, didn't you? There wasn't one here before you came.
No, it was just hollow up here, and we built the flat on 2 floors here.
And this wood looks as though it's seen good times.
Well, these are the original beams here from the 18th century, and you can see here the groove marks from one of the milling wheels,
Yes.
which was incorporated into the windmill.
And what's this bolt doing? What job is that doing?
This bolt goes right through the 2-foot wall of the mill and tethers the sails. It was there to prevent them in high winds turning unnecessarily.
Oh, this is my favourite bit, Roland. I think it's all lovely, but this is a fantastic room.
It's as far as we go with accommodation-wise, and you can see the castle out of that window.
Yes.
And it's got a lot of natural light coming through the relatively small windows.
Yes. Is there anything above here?
There's about 4 more stories equivalent, but it's all hollow and unused.
I must say it's been a great joy to be in here.
Not at all, thank you.
Well, that's all from us today. On the next Cast in the Country, Nikki and Lars Tharp share a drink on the front lawn.
We get some fabulous flower arranging tips with expert George Smith.
And James fires up the barbecue for a family lunch down by the lake. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Next this afternoon, watch out for a pair of Japanese vases. They're going to fly at auction. Flog it here on BBC Two.
Now, let's see. Or rather, let's not see. That's the problem, you see. Some people see